Good morning and welcome to our weekly LinkedIn Live leadership series, Voices of Leadership. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host and the founder and CEO of Equals Y. Each week, we bring the fascinating world of leadership featuring voices from various generations, industries, and backgrounds. A team's job is to deliver business results. It's the role of the leader to empower, inspire, and enable the people in the team to deliver those results. And there's a repeatable formula to that success. The E3 leadership code: express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. However, each leader's approach to applying that code is unique because there's no one way to lead. And that's the point of these live sessions, is really to showcase these diverse voices of leaders. So this is interactive, so please feel free to let us know where you're calling in from. It's an opportunity to network with others, so put your LinkedIn profile in there if you want and ask questions. Martha and I are ready for your questions, so feel free to ask those questions. So let me introduce today's guest. She's someone that I've had the pleasure of working with and I've known for years now. I don't want to count the years, Martha, because might age us, so we won't do that. But every time I have an opportunity to talk to Martha, she makes me laugh, she makes me think, and she really pushes me to want to be better as well. So Martha Bellens-Martin is the manager of the TAM Services for strategic telco accounts at Broadcom. But her story is much bigger than her title. Over her career, she's led technical account management teams at HP, VMware, and now Broadcom. She's the type of leader who doesn't just talk about change, she builds it. And Martha has created programs that actually make teams better, open doors for the next generation through scholarships, and never hesitates to call out bias or amplify voices that deserve to be heard. What I love most about Martha's leadership is how real she is. She knows showing up isn't enough, and engagement is where the magic happens. She brings empathy to execution and models transparency in ways that make people feel seen and inspired. So, Martha, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And, I did a really quick intro. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit more about you, your leadership journey, and what have you really learned along the way?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I have been inspired because of other leaders in my life. So as long as you surround yourself or can see where you're going to be a great leader. I'd like to actually start with a quote, though, from John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to either dream more, learn more, do more, you are a leader. So there is the concept of a leader because it's a title that's been given to you by a company and you have people reporting to you, but you could be a leader in any of the organization or any of the community items that you're involved in. My journey as an official leader began because somebody saw in me the potential to solve problems. And there's two things that she taught me that I have constantly looked for when other people say, I'd like to be a manager. Do you think I'll be a good one? Do you love to teach? And the reason I say that is the most successful managers and those that I've admired the most are the ones who want to teach somebody a skill that they don't already have. And the second is, do you rejoice and find pleasure and amplify when someone else is successful?
Mm.
As a manager, you get to look good when your team looks good. But you as the individual manager need to be able to truly celebrate in your heart and out loud to others the fact that somebody has accomplished, whether it's another certification, whether it's a new template that they've come up with, a new idea that has improved everybody's ability to do their job. And are they sharing that? So those two items are my definition. And I had a director who saw those qualities in me. And then I've looked for those and amplified those ever since.
So, something I heard, well, you didn't say it overtly. What I heard is being a leader is not about having an ego. You got to really check your ego at the door, right? You're teaching others, you're really trying to help them grow.
Yes.
And I agree. I think those two things are absolutely spot on, Martha, because I mean, so many people, and I'd love to hear your point of view. How many people you think get promoted simply because they're a fantastic individual contributor?
Yes. And what we see then happen is those people take one of two routes. They either, there obviously could be more, but generally you'll see if someone was a fantastic solution architect, then they become a manager. That's not the same thing. You need to be, as a manager, you need to, let me go back to rejoice in the accomplishments of others and not take credit for others' work. If you ever work for a manager that is claiming that the work that you did is something that they've come up with or that they authored, that's not good. But what you'll also see is they have difficulty delegating. And that is probably, when I coach people on becoming a manager, it is the scariest first step that you need to get comfortable doing. And I even, like my team leads now, I ask them, the work that you're doing, is there anybody else that you can teach and coach to do that also? And practice that delegation. Because now you're putting your responsibility into the hands of somebody else, but it is still going to reflect on you. It is a hard thing to learn to do and be comfortable with, but once you do that, you are going to have an amazing team, because you're not delegating to slough off work. You're delegating to amplify them. And now it's not just you doing the hard work. You've got 10, 15, 20 people doing it.
Yeah. Because I mean, your job really is different as a manager, right? It's
Mhm.
not about doing your job on steroids of what you were doing.
Yeah.
Your job is those two things, teaching others, right?
Yes.
And amplifying their voice. Because if you do
Yes.
your job right, you should be out of the picture, like, because
That's
other people should
that's
be
a
able to
little
do
bit
it.
hard, right? If you've been the top of your class, the very top, and that was the decision to promote you into management, that's a struggle.
Hmm.
That's a struggle. So one of the things I do love, and when I talk to people about when you're looking for your next job, find a job that matches the culture of where the direction is that you want your career to go. And the reason I say that is, at the companies that I've worked for, you can continue in a technical path and get recognized for that.
Yeah.
So if you are not personally going to be satisfied with being a manager, if you're like, you know what, my technical skills are fabulous, look for a path where you can be a leader in the technical space. It doesn't have to be the manager title.
Yeah. Oftentimes, the way I like to think about it is management is what you have to do. Leadership is how you do it. Whether
Mhm.
you have the responsibility of
Yes.
people is really that differentiator. And then once you have that responsibility, there's a lot of responsibilities,
There is.
right? That care and feeding for your
Mhm.
team, there's a lot
Yes.
to it. It's not just the technical skills, right?
No, it's not. And a lot of companies, right? Sometimes managers will go, oh, I don't want to do that. You have your first and foremost responsibility is to your paycheck, right? The company pays me to not just tell my team how fabulous they are, to not just give them responsibility, but we have a profit and loss number that we have to meet. That's my responsibility to make sure that my team is empowered to do that and that I watch those numbers and watch those books for them. We also want to, of course, increase our footprint. How do we go about doing that? So we want to, as a manager, look at what you're being evaluated on. Know this, because if you don't have a good grasp as a manager on what you and your team are being measured on, you can't help them succeed and you can't help their voices get amplified.
I love that. And that really is the first part of the E3 leadership code, Martha, right?
Mhm.
Expressing that envision.
Yeah.
Why are we here? What are we
Mhm.
supposed to do? Because people want to have purpose, right? They want to know why they're coming to work each day. And as a manager, that's your job, is to help them understand
Absolutely.
it and tie it to who they are.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
Martha, when you did your intro a little bit, you talked about some key people that were in your life and some,
Yes.
where did you learn some of your techniques and how you show up? And was there a really strong leader that you look to and appreciate what they've taught you?
There are. And Is it okay if I say actual names?
Sure.
So the very first director that I had when I got my first official title was Betty Arison. And she was the director over at Intergraph. And she went through and coached people on how to interview and what her expectations were. She was the first one that taught me set the expectation high and then follow up and make sure that it's consistently met. So management is never a one and done.
Mm.
She was hugely influential. I still am in touch with her today. She's a fantastic lady. She's retired now. So, but she also fostered that all of the managers reporting to her balanced off each other. So no one manager was considered higher in her chain than others. Everybody was expected to run their department and to bring that success to her. And then someone else that has made a huge difference in my life, and it's for two separate reasons. And his name is Jack Fine. So this is where I also really encourage people, and I'll tell you why. Jack did exactly what I want other people to do. He mentioned my name in a room where there was an opportunity, but I wasn't present.
Mm.
So when you become a manager, de facto, you also become a mentor, right? Mentoring is a very specific relationship. It's usually one-to-one. It's generally not, a group of people mentoring each other. It's a very personal. What I encourage leaders to do is be an advocate. Do you know enough about the spectrum of the people, not only that work for you, but that have maybe worked for you in the past and org changes now or somewhere else? And when you're sitting in a room and you're listening, you're like, hey, I know Kathy would be incredible for that role. Let me make sure that she knows about this role and that the person who has the opening is also aware. So that advocacy is how I have my current position. So Jack knew a gentleman by the name of Steve Kemp. He's a fantastic director here at Broadcom. Steve was looking for someone from outside the company to come in. TAM management, which I do now. Prior to this, I'd been a solution architect manager, right, in the pre-sales world.
Mm-hmm.
So in that, you're measured on what have you sold for me today, right? So that's the measuring stick that we're all pushing toward. TAM management is post-sales. It's the first time in my career I've done post-sales work. When Jack first told me about this, I was like, it's one step removed from where the money is made. And that's where I had been very comfortable in my career. He said, you need to take a look at this role. And there's a reason that I'm putting your name forward is because the role is looking for how can they expand their business even more. So Steve Kemp was the hiring manager. I got the opportunity to interview with him and with his other managers, and that was just over 10 years ago. So the people that influence my career are those that advocated for me. They told me about a position I wasn't even aware of, wasn't looking for, but they knew my skill set and they knew it could be a match, and they knew who the hiring manager was.
Yeah.
So that has in turn been what I think my mantra should be. As a leader, I am constantly on a swivel. What do I hear? What meetings am I in? Who do I know that can maybe further their career? I've had solution architects and TAMs work for me that wanted to not go into TAM leadership, maybe not even go into a technical path, but she really wanted to be in product engineering. I was like, well, let me find people in product engineering and start talking to them about what she can do for them. And so when you can make that happen, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. And it goes with, so both of those examples, right, really come to core on what you talked about in the beginning is you need to teach, right? As a manager, you have to provide the tools because we assume everyone knows what to do and we're not always taught. And that's the manager's job, is to help. And maybe you don't know all the answers, but helping find the answers for your team and then amplifying. And so I love those stories, because what I also heard you say with Jack, he wasn't just advocating for you within the company, but he was advocating to you. So because you needed the confidence and you needed the dots to be connected. And I think, and I'm gonna move a little bit into for the female side of things, I think women have a tendency to not always have the confidence needed to make that stretch and go into jobs that they'll be excellent at,
Yes.
but they need the encouragement.
Yes.
Is that something you've seen in your career?
Many times. And I'm sure everybody has seen all the studies, right? Women will only raise their hand in a classroom, starts at in middle school. Women tend to only raise their hand if they are absolutely sure they have the right answer. We see gentlemen raise their hand if they have 60%. We see the same thing on job applications.
Mm-hmm.
So that people, if a gentleman has half of the skills listed, bulleted out, then they'll apply for the position. A woman's like, well, I haven't done everything that they're looking for. So one of the opportunities that I got here, we had another fantastic leader in TAM leadership at VMware, and that was Andy Netterveld. And he tasked me with rewriting the job description so that that bias would be taken out of it. So sometimes the way you read something is different than a way a man might read it. So instead of saying you must have these skills, these are the skills we have to have. There's other skills we'd like to have, but we can teach you those skills. If
Mm-hmm.
you come to with 20% of what we're looking for, there's other pieces we can teach you about the position, about the company, about our solution. So that's another, from a female perspective, ways that we can lift everybody up is to say, yeah, you can do this. You are not only knowledgeable, and this is where in a group setting or a group meeting, unfortunately, we still see this happen a little bit today. You'll make a statement. It is spot on, 100% accurate, no reaction in the room. A gentleman will make the exact same statement, paraphrase, and they'll come back and go, oh my gosh, that was such a great idea. So what I do when I see that, and unfortunately we still see it again, is take some time to coach and say, why didn't everybody hear it when Kathy said it?
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same information, exact same. So I do encourage women, when they do make that statement, say it boldly. Don't whisper what you know to be the answer to the problem.
Yeah, because we have a tendency to sit back and go, "Oh, it wasn't a good idea," and
Mhm.
that I think it perpetuates further, right? Because then the worst thing that can happen is you don't raise your hand the next time, or you don't speak up,
Correct. Yeah.
and then
And
the
then
bullet
that,
won't
that
be
voice gets
heard at all.
silent.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were ever aware, but when I started at HP, I did not, at that point in my life, had not met very many female leaders in the IT industry. And so seeing someone with your title also was very encouraging to me. And when I think about, why take the time to do this podcast? I speak a lot to juniors and seniors that are graduating. Why take the time to do that, right? Everybody's busy. We always hear that. So when you give back, though, you'd be surprised that people say, wow, I didn't realize ladies could do this. I didn't realize a woman could be a director. And until you see that example, and then that person who's actually carrying that title takes the time to speak with you and say, here's the steps that I took to achieve this. And here's how I'm succeeding and how I'm turning around and helping the next person. So that's why it's so critical for ladies in any industry. If you want to help the next person forward, think of the steps that you took and how well are you then reaching back and teaching that again.
Yeah.
Again, going back to teaching, right?
Absolutely. Right. It's going to come back to those two primary points. But I was on a call yesterday talking about it, and it was someone that had a different hair texture. And they're like, I'm not going to be accepted here because I'm different. And it wasn't until they interviewed someone that was similar to them that they
Uh-huh.
said, oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
I'm not the odd one out here,
Mhm.
and I will be respected in this company. And it's so important to have that diversity within the company. And by the way, it's not just gender, it's not just race, it's the way we think, right? Like some of us are very forward and to the point and direct, and some people are a little more thoughtful in how they show up and how
Mhm.
they think before they speak. All of that diversity is so important to companies, but we have to make sure that we have to set the example so everyone
Yep.
feels comfortable.
So
So,
let me pull on that thread for just a second, because that's actually one of the speeches that I've given a couple of times, is why diversity is so important. And there is one specific answer: because the more diverse your team or the group of people that you've assembled to fix a problem, the better and the breadth of different perspectives will bring. So you mentioned, of course, gender is a big one, but age is another one. If
mm,
you want that fresh perspective, maybe somebody that hasn't been a little bit jaded or said, oh gosh, we're not going to do that because we tried that a couple of years ago. Yes, but all the variables have changed. So what if you tried it a couple of years ago? Now you've got different factors in the marketplace. So the idea is ready to be brought forward again. So when I talk about diversity, where you were raised, if you were a single, an only child, then
yep.
if I have a project that I need to assign, that gosh, I got to get this done fast. I want it to go to somebody that's really comfortable, working on their own. But if I need, an answer to a complex problem, I'm going to throw it out there and literally brainstorm about it. And everybody gets their perspective, and you want that breadth of perspective. And that's where diversity, when a company pays attention to that, it makes a huge difference, because you will have a better answer to whatever your solution was. Do you remember when Bethany Frankel first started? Most people have heard of Skinny Girl Margarita.
Yep.
She
Absolutely.
came up with that, but she pitched it to multiple boards that controlled the liquor industry. And all she wanted, she wasn't trying to get them to give her money. She just wanted the distribution. She went to so many different places. Everybody's like, unfortunately, at that point, only men were on those boards. So I love men. I married one, right? This is not against men. They just didn't see that there was a problem with the solution that she was offering them. Well,
Hmm.
she finally got one and a couple of friends, and then somebody else knew something. So it started showing up. And then people started asking for it in different bars. 2 years after she pitched it at no charge, she was bought out for multiple millions of dollars, because the product has taken off. So that's why you want diversity, is because just because you don't see the problem or the solution, somebody else will.
Yeah, I agree. And
Yeah.
there's one story that always says, like, if you give a problem solving around making a recipe,
Yeah.
and you're missing an ingredient based on your culture and where you keep your ketchup. So I think it was
Oh,
ketchup,
yeah. Yeah.
where they're like, okay, so you've run out of ketchup. What could you substitute? And if you keep your ketchup in the refrigerator, you're going to think about condiments there.
Mm-hmm.
But in Europe, they tend to keep the ketchup in the cabinet. It's not refrigerated. So you have a whole different set. That
Mm-hmm.
that is diversity at its
Yeah.
best, right? We tend to just look at it from race and gender, but it is those experiences, it's everything. And I think the strongest leaders are the ones that recognize it and look for it, right? And encourage it, and really make everyone feel included and belong.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were talking earlier, you before we came on this, that you were at a seminar yesterday. I'd love to, because you were sharing some things and it was all about respect.
Ah, yes. So it was the Aggie Women. It was our annual um, leadership panel, and so I was an attendee, and I was listening. And they had one of the presenters was the current vice president of the student body, so very has not started her career. And then there was a lady who had finished her MBA like 10 years ago. And so she was, had already worked, had that
Mhm.
perspective. And then the moderator is the CEO of the Girl Scouts,
Okay.
and she has a very different perspective too, as she's gone through and worked at nonprofits and worked throughout her industry, about not only being able to be successful as a female CEO, but having your family respect that also. So sometimes, where you get your support from is equally as important. It's not just coming from your immediate supervisor, right? Do
Mm,
you have the support? So in yours and mine's jobs, we've had to travel extensively. Is
yeah.
there somebody at home supporting everything that needs to keep happening at the home front, right? Whether
Mhm.
it's pets or children or just even running a household, that needs to get that respect from everybody on what you are trying to accomplish with your personal career. And one of the other pieces that I loved that I wrote down in my notes was help people understand, especially ladies who are going forward their career. It is not always a competition. It
Mm.
is not a comparison. It is how can we build everybody up? So making sure that you're not elevating yourself by pushing someone else down. Elevate everything around you. It will come back to you in a very positive manner. Foster that belonging. If you're in a position where you've been granted a title, you are absolutely responsible for making sure that everybody that's in your care feels like they have the absolute right to be there and their voice is equally as important as anybody else's on the team.
Yep.
And team isn't just who directly reports to you, right? You have influence in a number of different ways. Something that somebody told me years ago that I didn't think about always. We all go to these large conferences and they said, we don't watch the presenter, we watch your face. I am not a poker player. So whatever I'm feeling is like right there. They're like, we watch your face. When they make an announcement, we want to see your reaction to it.
Interesting.
So yeah, and so I was like, oh, I better pay attention to because you're all thinking, oh, you're looking here, or you're looking here. As a manager, you have those responsibilities too, is to say, are you grounding the team? And is your personal reaction affecting them? And if it is, good if it's in a positive manner.
Yeah. I often talk about the flight attendant as a benchmark, right? When you're on a plane and there's rockiness, who do you look at first? I always look at the flight attendant because
Ah,
if they panic, then I'm like, oh, it's time to panic. But if they're calm and they're still reading their
yeah,
magazine, I'm like, oh, that's nothing to worry about. And I think that's what leadership
yes,
is, right? People are
mhm,
looking to you to say, are you on board with this?
yes,
And that was actually something we used to do back in HP. I don't know if you remember, we would have the meetings with the leadership team first. If we were going through a massive change,
yes,
we would make sure all of the managers were on board with it. They understood the why and the how and the what's it going to look like, so that when all the individuals came in, we had the answers, right? That the management team could come
yes,
back and say, I've already heard this, don't worry,
mhm,
we've got control.
yes.
So, yeah, and we're getting lots of great comments, from the audience here. Richard was sharing that elevate everyone around you. He loved that statement, and Ralph saying watching the flight attendant. So I think we're hitting the mark on this, Martha, but we are getting down to the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
This is how fast time goes. So, what's some advice you have for leaders that know they have diversity on their team, or how do you help drive that belonging in organizations?
So one of the things that was taught to me years ago that I still do today, and I see other good managers do it, I never, ever don't have a one-on-one with my people on a regular scheduled basis. This is time for just Kathy and I, or whoever that conversation is with, just the two of us. I need to know you at the level of what's going on with you personally. Where do you want your career to go? And also talk a little bit, of course, about the work perspective. But that individual time is critical so that over time, especially in today's, I work remote to most of my people
Hmm.
and I don't see them all that much. And so one, being on camera when you're having your conversations, but understand what they want to accomplish and then find an opportunity to make that happen. Very specifically, if someone on my team wants to go into management, then I want to make sure that if my director asks me for a presentation, do I have to be the one making it, or can I turn that over and have them help me put together the details and be the presenter, especially if I want to get that person promoted. Going back to that first quote, right? It's, did you help someone move forward? And one of the things that I want to look for, shoot, I just started getting some weird feedback, is not not doing your job as expected, the manager, but giving that opportunity to someone else.
Hmm.
And to me, that's critical for your leaders
Yep.
is find it and then push them. They're like, oh, wait, that's 2 levels above me. That's okay. So promotion isn't always a popularity contest, but it is important that your name is known, and it is known for the specific accomplishments that you did, you, the individual.
Yeah, I like that. And that advocacy really starts way before any jobs are posted.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is important to be knowing, working with your leaders to, do I have the skills? Do I have the experience? Do I have the capabilities? And how do I get them? I was overlooked for one position one time. And at first I really was, wow, I can't believe I was overlooked. And I realized that that position was filled months before it was ever even announced.
Yes.
And that's the most important thing, to understand what that looks like, and making sure you're talking about it. And that's the manager's job, is to have those conversations. All right, so you've given us so many nuggets already, Martha. Any last minute thoughts or comments or nuggets you want to share?
Uh, One of the things to be a successful leader, not just to be a good people advocate, you need to know your business. So whatever that business is, you need to have a good understanding of it. And so I encourage people to read business books, not about your own company, but about the industry that you're in, whatever that is, and understand how that industry makes money. You will be a better leader if you know that and then can help others understand that. And then, as a manager, delegate something, make sure that you build people up, and do a regular review with them. Don't do an annual check-in. That check-in has to be regular, and that constant feedback. And then, in addition to knowing your industry, I also think it's critical to read really great business books. And we have a little book club at work about books that we've seen. There's a good one, Strength Finder. That one's excellent.
Yeah.
So often we try to say, okay, I'm really good at these 9 things. What do you want me to work on? I'm like, amplify the 9. That other one, somebody else on the team can pick it up. Again, going back to what you said about diversity, right? So elevate the strengths that you already have. Don't try to make yourself something maybe that you're not as great at. Find somebody who is. Another business book that my whole team really enjoyed, Sean Aker. He wrote this years ago. You can see how many nuggets I get out of that. This one, The Happiness Advantage. I had several of my people even tell me their whole family read it. It is a fantastic book. So that's a really good one. The other one, I had the chance to hear this gentleman speak, Bill McDermott. At the time he was heading up SAP. He is an incredible leader. He is an inspirational speaker. So surround yourself with really positive thoughts from others who've gone before you. You don't have to create it, right? So reading books about your industry, but also reading about leaders that you respect and want to emulate, and what can you pick up from them.
I love it. Martha, I'm hoping that when my book comes out in a few months, that might make your book list. And
Oh, absolutely. Only if I get a signed copy. I do love it when I get to meet an author and then have a signed copy from them.
absolutely. Well, Martha, so many huge nuggets to take away. And I wrote down the 2 main ones, because I think almost everything comes back to these 2 things. Is, as a manager, you have to love to teach, and you
Yeah.
need to amplify everyone on your team. And I think if we just remember those 2 things, we will be elevating the people around us. And that's our job, right? Yes, we have to deliver results, but when we take care of our people, then we're really helping deliver the results for the business.
100%.
So Mark, so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you also to the audience. We hope that this was valuable for us. We'd love to hear what some of the biggest takeaway and tips are. Please feel free to share in the comments, and Martha and I will continue to monitor the comments throughout. And if anyone is interested, we're actually having a couple events. So Martha mentioned business acumen. She didn't even know she teed this up for me. But this month, our Lunch and Learn, we're going to have a CFO join us to talk about some of the business metrics that every leader should have to know. Whether it's the revenue numbers, EBITDA, things like that. So we're having a lunch and learn in a couple weeks on that. And follow us on www.e=y.com. And thanks for joining us. Martha, thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.